There are laws in the universe which underpin the evolution of life. One of these laws is the law of polarity. With me now are Tantra teachers Maria Porsfelt and Morgan Arundel. If I may start at the beginning, Maria and Morgan, what is the principle of polarity?
Hi, Vivienne. Yes, so within the Tantric cosmology, polarity is one of the principles that is used to understand how the creation comes into being. It's seen as an interaction of two fundamental aspects of consciousness and energy, and this interaction of these two aspects is what makes the creation come alive, come into being, come into existence. And we find this interaction at absolutely every level of the manifestation. We can see it, for example, at the physical level. We always see the dynamism between two forces, like we have in electricity. You have the plus and the minus. Or in philosophy, we hear about the yin and the yang, the emissive, receptive, the dynamic or passive, the masculine and the feminine. So there's always, we see this interaction of these two polar aspects. And this is central to creation and is one of the fundamental laws that allows us to understand how creation both is sustained and is maintained, and how we can kind of relate to it. Yeah.
Maria, how is this taught in Tantra?
So in the Tantric tradition, we have Shiva and Shakti on top of Mount Kailash, embraced in an ecstatic, effervescent, passionate lovemaking. And from their union, the entire creation is born and unfolds. And therefore we can say that the entire creation is infused with this ecstasy of their union. And we are infused in reality with this ecstasy or this perfect happiness, which also at the same time represents our path back to the perfect union. Learning to play that game or to fuse in that ecstatic love is leading us back to the source, back to this oneness and to this perfection, we can say, represented by their unity and their perfect merging.
So how does it relate to the individual?
Yeah, well, here is a very beautiful model, we can say, that's offered by Tantra that allows us to understand existence. And that is, it sees that the human being has a very special relationship to the whole of creation, to the cosmos. We use these terms microcosm, referring to the individual, and macrocosm, referring to the universal. And this relationship between the individual and the universal is very beautifully described in Tantra. It says that there is a perfect correspondence between the individual and the universal, so that what we find in the individual is, or the microcosm, we also find in the universal, in the macrocosm. And if we don't find it in here, then it doesn't exist anywhere. So this is showing that all the, we can say, the principles, the laws, the mechanisms that we see operating in the world, in some way they also appear in us as individuals. Now, with this law of polarity, if we take it that the creation comes into being through the interaction of two fundamental polar aspects, a plus and a minus, a yin, a yang, a masculine and a feminine, which from the cosmic point of view are expressions of consciousness and energy, as Maria pointed out there, this very poetic vision. These two polar aspects are represented by these deities Shiva and Shakti. Then we can also see those things within the individual. And this is a very special vision upon masculinity and femininity, actually, in Tantra, that a man is seen as an embodiment of the universal masculine and a woman seen as the embodiment of the universal feminine. Now, of course, polarity exists at every level, so of course it also exists within the individual. So as every being, whether you're a man or woman, you have within you this plus and minus, the consciousness and the energy, the masculine and the feminine. And so this game of life is in fact a game of polarity. It's learning how to use these polar aspects wisely in our life. So we learn how to in the moments when we need to manifest that, we can say that masculine aspect, which is awareness, relates to awareness and consciousness. It's something which is unchanging and permanent and gives us the clarity and lucidity that helps us be aware of our existence. And then that Shakti or energy aspect, that other side of the pole, is everything else. It's life, it's the body, it's the energies, it's our emotions, it's our experiences, it's our perceptions, it's our thoughts, it's our understandings. And from the tantric point of view, life is seen as this game of polarity. Yeah.
So polarity is happening at many, many levels. How, Maria, would this, an individual or anybody who's listening, for the first time, say new to Tantra, go about practically implementing polarity, learning about it, and making it work in their lives at a practical level?
Well, Tantra is the path of energy, so embracing Shakti, actually, which is something very unique for a spiritual practice, one that acknowledges the value of the feminine and of the energy and of the intense life experiences which Shakti represents. We can say having a lot of power, a lot of energy in life, embracing life in its full intensity. So that would be a place to start. Embracing life with everything that it offers us, because very often we are busy negotiating with life. We kind of would like to take some parts, avoid others. We often think that things that happen to us are very unfair, or we start to get a little bit in a struggle with life. That means a poor relationship with Shakti, we can say, when we're not having a good relationship with life. Therefore, starting by embracing life in full intensity, that is the beginning. Now, of course, it's also said in the tantric tradition that Shakti without Shiva or without consciousness is chaos. So if we just jump into an intense life experience completely without our head and forget about everything, we learn, let's say, but maybe not in the most pleasant way, from the outcome of those life experiences, from the chaos that ensues from our intense meeting with life. So therefore we need to also bring awareness. We need to bring Shiva into those life experiences. That would be the other part. So when we bring our intense awareness and presence into an intense life experience, that is when we are achieving actually this merging between Shiva and Shakti. And what springs out of that to begin with is happiness. And that is one of the, we can say, ways that we can see we're on the right path when it comes to playing this game of polarity, this game of Shiva and Shakti. We become more and more happy. So when we are bringing consciousness, when we are bringing awareness into the intense savoring of life, that is when balance, we can say, becomes the result, or the perfect union becomes the result. That also gives rise to a very profound feeling of happiness and fulfillment. In essence, I suppose what we're all searching for.
And Morgan, you also mentioned about power as well as happiness. Balancing polarities can bring willpower, strengthen your willpower.
Yeah, well, why this is interesting for us if we're on the spiritual path is that we're always looking for some kind of force that drives our actions, our efforts to evolve. And if we have no force there, we're not going to go anywhere. Just like if we don't have any fuel in the car, it doesn't matter how fancy the car is, you don't get anywhere. And actually this is one of the analogies we often use to understand polarity is as in a battery. We think of the plus and the minus within a battery. And if you have a small battery, then you have a small plus and a small minus. They're kind of, the energies are close to one another. If you have a very powerful battery, you have a big negative force there and a big positive force there. And so there's more power, there's more force, there's more energy there. And when we cultivate polarity in our own lives, whether that be in our own body and emotions and mind, or within our relationships to others, our relationships to life and to experiences, as Maria was putting there, then we cultivate more power. And so that's one of the reasons why we are interested in that, because we would want to then use that power as a fuel for our spiritual efforts to support our spiritual transformation. And this is one of the things that we find, that when we break this principle, when we kind of violate it, if you like, or we ignore it in our own lives, then life becomes flat. We become flat. Like Maria was describing something very beautiful there about this kind of polarising or meeting experience with awareness. And it's either going one way where it becomes chaotic, or it goes the other way where it becomes very dry and kind of empty and lifeless. So this awareness of polarity, and this, I can say, a wise way of playing with this law, gives us an extraordinary force and power that we can use for good in the world. We can use to transform our lives. And then this is a big secret as to how we can access this kind of force. Yeah.
Is it common for people to get stuck in one polarity or the other?
I would say we probably have an inclination. So very often we have a general way of relating to life. Either we are a little bit more I don't even call it the mental type, but a bit more dry, having a bit more of a dry approach to life, where we like to think a lot about things before we do anything, and maybe we try to sit and contemplate and to make really sure that it's the right choice before we make any move forward and so on. But very often we miss out on the fun, we can say the juice, the fulfillment of life for that reason. And then there's another type of approach to life where we like to just jump into experiences, one experience after the other, more, but without much mindfulness of what are the consequences, or even being very present in them. So somehow we're still not fulfilled because it's never enough. No matter how many experiences, no matter what kind of intensity, is never enough because we're not really present when they happen anyway. So lacking one or the other, in a way we can say the result is more or less the same, until we realize what is missing and we start to bring that in.
Can I add an example there, just from my own life? One thing that relates to this is, when I was younger, I kind of, before starting with the tantric path and practices seriously, I used to find this phenomenon that Maria was talking about through intense experiences or extreme experiences. So I used to engage in extreme sports, for example, because in that moment, when you are, for example, I used to skydive, and jumping out of an aeroplane, in that moment when you jump out of that aeroplane, you are very present. It's a very intense experience. You're hurtling at the ground at 300 kilometers an hour, and you in that moment you are forced to be extremely present. And that was I didn't know it, I know it now, but that was forcing me into an experience of polarity, of mirroring and matching that kind of intense experience with polar energy. So
that's a wonderful description. I think I'm going to remember that when I'm practicing polarity. Because it's not easy to grasp, is it? Maria, did it take you long to understand and apply the principle of polarity in your life?
I'm still in a process of understanding and applying and deepening this. But what I feel is very important in this is also to understand that it is a conscious embracing of both masculine and feminine, and an appreciation of both. And this is something I have found very important in my own life, and I generally speaking think is very important when it comes to this principle. Because often otherwise it becomes a little bit, a fight between masculine and feminine, or undervaluing of one or the other, or a rejection even of one or the other. Whereas this principle of polarity teaches us the value of both halves, we can say, of the yin and yang, and the importance of embracing and truly appreciating both. So even we say that Tantra is the path of Shakti, of we can say following Shakti back to that oneness, back to that union, following, we can say, the path of ecstasy to that perfect merging and oneness that takes us to transcendence. Shiva is essential, as we can also see from what we have spoken about until now. That awareness, that conscious principle that is continuously brought to the Shakti. and that is appreciated and embraced, and actually gives that Shakti a direction back to oneness. Because in the absence of that, again, we said Shakti is chaos, or is the expanding into life, but without any real direction. Bringing that conscious principle and that presence starts to give a direction back to oneness, to all that ecstatic experience, and actually brings the ecstasy. And to value that both are necessary for creating that perfect balance. And I think that has made me value both my own femininity more, has made me appreciate myself and notice the feminine qualities I manifest as a woman, but also value the masculine and the beautiful masculine qualities I see, for instance, expressed in the men around me, and even kind of enjoying when we can say, manifest some of these masculine qualities myself in different moments, especially maybe something that I was lacking, definitely. Being a woman, maybe also I was more, we can say, connected to the Shakti aspects in many moments. But lacking maybe sometimes a bit of this sense of direction, for instance, and the goal, and that, we can say, direction to those life experiences I enjoyed so much. Appreciating more the masculine aspects and bringing that, we can say, that quality, awakening those qualities more in myself, we can say my inner man, or that dot of yang in my yin, has made my life much more wonderful, actually, and you could maybe even say a bit more efficient too.
So embracing the principle of polarity leads to a lot of self-knowledge and self-growth, is that right?
Yes, absolutely. I can also mirror what Maria just shared in my own life. It's been a similar kind of process of, I would say also, it's very liberating to start to know how to relate to your own masculinity as a man in a very harmonious way, and also how to relate to the feminine, both in your own being, your own emotions, your own sensitivity, your own receptiveness, but also in women, and how to relate to that feminine power in women, and really how to actually, it teaches you how to relate to that correctly, in a very life-affirming and empowering way. So, for example, I see the feminine, the power of the feminine qualities, and I start to adore that, and that creates a very beautiful way that I can relate to those qualities, both in women and in myself and in other situations.
Was it a surprise to you to see that there are so many feminine qualities?
No, not really. I think it wasn't that there was a surprise that there would, it wasn't like that. It was more a clarity in what they were. You know, what does it mean to manifest those masculine qualities? It brings clarity to that. And it brings clarity to know when to apply those qualities. As Maria kind of pointed out, that in her own life, maybe being more connected to the feminine aspects, but then feeling that fulfillment and necessity of manifesting a more masculine aspect, which might be this kind of direction in life. And so it's more about that. It's more about knowing when to apply the appropriate aspect in any life situation. You know, right now, what do I need? Do I need to really abandon more, to let go, to embrace, to experience, to live more, to be more alive? Or do I need more awareness now? Do I need more direction? And, do I need to orient this experience in a certain way? Is it going somewhere? Where's the outcome? This would kind of be generally considered part of a masculine approach. And so that's also needed. So I think it's more about this, and that brings a great sense of clarity. There's a lot of confusion, I think, in how we manifest these things and these aspects in our lives, especially in modern times. And so I think this brings a great relief and a great understanding and a great clarity to that.
And I think also especially this idea that in different moments in your life you might also manifest one predominance or the other, and you need to pay attention. I mean, again, here within your own inner universe, but maybe also sometimes in relation to others. And I noticed, for instance, something I have to be attentive to, even if we say having a lot of Shakti in many moments, is this nourishing and embracing and taking care of the heart, we can say, that is so characteristic for the feminine. for the divine feminine. And to apply this both to myself, like to take care of my needs, to nourish myself, to nourish my heart, to do what is important for my heart first and foremost, and also taking that to nourishing others, like to offer this space, heart space, to take care of the needs, to realize that sometimes also taking care of an emotional need, or we can say nourishing certain aspects in life, are as important as the direction or the efficiency or the responsibilities or other things that needs to be taken care of. And for me, that has been quite a revelation in my own life, that has brought a lot of happiness and harmony, where I maybe in some moments would tend to fall more, we can say, into this goal-oriented, motivated, a bit pushing or very responsible attitude that then would leave me dry. And this would literally be the feeling I would have. Now, it's also said that Shiva without Shakti is Shava, or a corpse, so lifeless. And this is literally the feeling I will have if I'm very stressed, or if I'm getting very disconnected, we can say, from this nourishing and full of life and we can say embracing aspect of Shakti. I do feel that I am just flat and dry, and I can't almost even feel anything, is kind of the experience I'm having. And in those moments, to pay attention, to open up to Shakti, to bring the Shakti aspect in different ways, whatever it is. Often some conscious pleasure is a good way of getting in touch with my Shakti, we can say, or this element, but also really to prioritize moments that are just for your heart, or for taking care of your heart or the heart of another, because many times that can also bring that energy more present in our lives. In this way, for me, it has been a very practical revelation, and to pay attention to, something to pay attention to both with myself, but I would say also in my relationships. This is another topic which I suppose is a bit extensive maybe to go into details with in this podcast. But nevertheless, this idea of also understanding how that game plays out, for instance, in your couple relationship, and how it can help you awaken and maintain passion, how it can help you deepen the love, how it can help create harmony and, we can say, a stable happiness in a couple relationship and a togetherness and so on. There are a lot of very valuable and very important practical applications from understanding this principle more and more. But as I also said, it's an ongoing learning process and deepening, and in order to understand this. But then what is also so miraculous for me is that this apparently very abstract universal principle, once you start to pay attention, it really is there in every single aspect of your life. You can observe the universal reality in your everyday life experiences, not just with this principle, with any principle in reality, but for me this has been a revelation of magnitude in my life, to see that actually I'm living a universal life in this very apparently small existence in a very particular place on this planet. Still, I'm tapped into this universal life and seeing it unfold all around me in every moment.
A cosmic game.
Yes. A balancing act. Is there ever a possibility of getting into complete harmony?
Well, if we're talking about kind of from a principle point of view, then there is no such thing as perfect balance between these two polar aspects. There's always some dynamism between these two forces, and that's what makes this creation a dynamic creation. There is nothing truly or perfectly static in this existence. Everything in it is in a process of evolution or dissolution, or growth or decay, and that's actually very well represented by the Taoist symbol, the yin yang symbol, which is quite well known, the circle containing the black and the white image there, and in each one there is the little dot. In the white there's the dot of the yang, and then there's the and vice versa, and that shows that there is always a little bit of yin in every yang and a little bit of yang in every yin. There's a little bit of plus in every minus and a little bit of minus in every plus. There's always a kind of dynamism, and actually that's the whole, if we go back to that that cosmological vision that Tantra offers, where indeed the whole process of creation is one cycle, is a pulse of creation. There is an expansion, and then there is a reabsorption, and that is also a polarity. Is one movement, one pole, the expansion, and one the reabsorption. So the existence itself is all wrapped up in this principle of polarity.
We experience that in our body, don't we, when we breathe?
Yes, we can see cycles everywhere, and cycles are an expression of polarity. After all, when we're talking about polarity, we're talking about two poles, and moving from one pole to another, and every cycle is that. There's the cycles of breathing, the circadian rhythms, the cycle of day and night, the seasons. It goes on and on.
Then there are moments of balance. That's the moments we have the revelations, we can say. Moments of balance would be a moment of transcendence, or a moment of orgasm, why not? Which also represents a moment of perfect balance, when we transcend our normal way of being and we suddenly have access to something else. And then, of course, the game continues, maybe on another level, maybe in a different way, until again we have a moment of balance that allows us to transcend something, that allows us to crystallize, that allows us to go deeper. So continuously, life is this unfolding of the game of polarity, the interaction between the two in different predominances, and then those moments of balance that appears. But those moments are crucial nevertheless. And they're the ones that give us the direction, ultimately speaking, back to oneness, and also the ones that start to infuse more and more our life with a stable joy and this perfect happiness.
So to end, just a couple of words from both of you, please, about encouraging those listening to really get to grips with polarity and to invite polarity into their everyday life.
Well, for me, it's there's nothing that has expressed this quite so beautifully and elegantly as the models offered by Tantra. So for me, it's about studying the tantric vision and those principles that are offered there. And I guess you could say that's a very masculine way of of approaching it and looking at it. Understand the mechanisms and understand the principles behind it. But for many people, that approach will appeal. And for me, this is fascinating. It brings a lot of clarity to my life. It makes this feeling of freedom, actually, a kind of liberation from confusion and from misunderstanding. And I feel very free to observe this play of polarity both in myself and in creation. So that's been my approach, and I encourage people to do that.
Yeah, I mean, where to start? It is your life. So again, it's like where to start noticing your life right here and right now. And begin by noticing. Notice the way that this principle is unfolding continuously. Notice your relationship with intensity, how present and aware you are. Notice your interactions with others, because polarity happens at different moments, even this aspect of energy, for instance. I don't know, for me it's like I'm having a bit of a flat Monday maybe, and then I'm in the supermarket and you catch the eye of, I don't know, some nice guy. And it's just a moment, that moment of, catching each other's eyes, a little smile, and you go about your business. But the day is different afterwards, you have this burst of energy and power, and everything comes to life. That's a moment of experience polarity. But not to stay there, because of course that's just one of the experiences we can have with this. We know it very well. This is the thing. So maybe it sounds like something very mysterious. It's not. We have very intimate knowledge of the principle of polarity, all of us, because it is our life. It's the background of our entire existence as it unfolds. So to start to pay attention, but also to notice our relationship both with the feminine and the masculine. And notice, how is our relationship with the feminine and masculine? Do we cherish it? Do we value it? Do we adore it and admire it? Both sides. Can we embrace it and elevate it and really cherish the different masculine and feminine manifestations in our life? And then, of course, I'm very much with Morgan on this. Tantra offers a wonderful way of deepening consciously this principle, different ways of practically applying it and working with energy in order to indeed reach the top of the mountain, or that, I'm going to say, perfect ecstasy of transcendence and perfect oneness.
Maria and Morgan, thank you very much.
Thank you, Vivienne.